Before we dive deeper into this emotional journey, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love seeing how far our stories reach around the world. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter of love, sacrifice, and redemption coming tomorrow. Trust us, it's one you won't want to miss. Thank you for being here. Your support helps us keep telling stories that move the soul. A billionaire bought her for a baby, but he never expected to fall in love. The desert wind blew hot against Savannah's face as she stood outside the run-down apartment complex she called home. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue across the cracked pavement, but there was nothing warm about the thoughts running through her mind. Bills were piling up on the kitchen table: unpaid rent, overdue electricity, and a medical notice she couldn't even bear to open. Inside, her 5-year-old son Miles was coloring on the floor, humming softly, completely unaware that their world was falling apart. Savannah was only 27, but life had aged her far beyond her years. Since Miles's father walked out the day he was born, every burden had fallen squarely on her shoulders. She worked 2 part-time jobs, neither of which offered benefits or stability. Every day felt like a fight for survival. And now, with eviction looming and an empty fridge waiting at home, she had run out of options. Then came the message: an anonymous text from a number she didn't recognize. It offered a chance, albeit an unthinkable one. Private auction. One night. Discreet. Compensation: $1 million. Details to follow. She stared at it for hours. She didn't sleep that night. What kind of world asked a woman to sell herself like this? But what kind of world left a child to starve when his mother had no other choice? The invitation came with coordinates, not an address. She had to leave her phone behind, wear a simple black dress, and show up exactly at p.m. Savannah told her neighbor, Mrs. Clay, that she had a job interview out of town and needed her to watch Miles overnight. The old woman didn't ask questions. Perhaps she saw the desperation in Savannah's eyes. That evening, Savannah rode in silence in the back seat of a sleek black SUV sent to pick her up. The further they drove into the desert, the tighter the knot in her stomach grew. She looked down at her hands, nails chipped, knuckles raw from hours spent scrubbing dishes. Was she really about to do this? When they arrived, she was escorted into a grand hall, unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls were lined with gold-trimmed mirrors and velvet drapes. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting fractured light over the dozen women waiting silently in chairs. Each of them wore the same black dress. Each of them carried the same haunted expression. Savannah sat at the end of the row, her back straight, her breath shallow. Her heart raced. She wasn't sure if it was fear or shame or both. This wasn't a choice she had made lightly. This wasn't about luxury or vanity. This was about Miles, and if walking onto that stage meant he would have food on the table, a roof over his head, and a future she could never give him on her own, then she would walk. And no matter the cost. Savannah's name was called like a number, detached, rehearsed, cold. Lot 21, the announcer said with theatrical flair. Her legs felt like concrete as she stood, heels clicking on polished marble as she stepped toward the stage. The spotlight hit her hard, blinding and hot, like she was no longer a person but a product. Behind the lights, shadows moved: men in expensive suits sipping whiskey, eyes scanning the women like items on a shelf. She felt their stares crawling over her skin. Her palms were sweating, her throat dry. Breathe, she told herself. This is for Miles. Then came the voice, calm, commanding. American, $1.2 million. The room fell silent, heads turned. Savannah looked up, just enough to catch a glimpse of the man in the back row. Broad shoulders, black tailored suit, icy blue eyes locked straight on her, unreadable. The host cleared his throat, stunned. Do I hear any other bids? Silence. Sold to Mr. Julian Cross. Savannah's knees nearly gave out, but she held it together long enough to walk off stage. As she reached the side of the room, the man was already waiting for her. He was taller than she expected. His presence overwhelming. He didn't smile. He didn't offer false comfort. We'll speak privately, he said, his voice low and steady. They were taken to a secluded lounge at the back of the estate. Dark wood, low lighting, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the desert. Julian gestured for her to sit. She did. He handed her an envelope. Inside, a thick legal contract, pages upon pages. It read like something from a courtroom drama, cold, clinical, airtight. You'll undergo IVF, he said, and carry my child. After birth, you'll receive your full compensation and walk away. The child stays with me. No contact, no custody. Savannah's heart thudded in her chest. You want me to have a baby and leave it behind? She whispered, the words catching in her throat. I want an heir, Julian replied bluntly. Not a mother. Anger and fear surged through her. You think you can just buy a life by me and call that parenting? Julian didn't flinch. You signed up for this. No one forced you. Savannah stood, hands trembling. I didn't know it would be like this, that it would feel this hollow. He stepped closer, and for the first time, his voice softened just a little. You're not trapped, Savannah, but you made a choice. I'm offering security for your son, for yourself. Sign it, and this part of your life ends. She looked down at the pen. One signature, one child, $1 million. For Miles. Her hand moved on its own. The pen met the paper. When it was done, Julian nodded. Tomorrow, we begin the medical process. My driver will take you home tonight. As she walked out of the room, her chest heavy with regret, one thing became clear. She had just signed away more than her future. She'd signed away a piece of her soul. The mansion was massive to perfect to quiet. Savannah's boots barely made a sound against the polished hardwood floors as she followed the housekeeper, a kind middle-aged woman named Linda. The hallway stretched like a museum, filled with cold art and colder air. Everything smelled like money, but there was no warmth, no soul. This will be your room, Linda said softly, opening a door to a suite that looked straight out of a luxury hotel. Cream-colored walls, silk sheets, a balcony that overlooked the rolling hills. Savannah didn't answer. She just nodded, clutching her overnight bag like it was a lifeline. That night, she barely slept. Her thoughts raced with images of Miles, his little voice asking when she'd be home, his tiny arms wrapping around her neck. What have I done? She kept thinking, staring at the ceiling while the world outside the mansion slept peacefully. The next morning, the schedule began. Medical exams, psychological evaluations, nutrition planning. No detail was left unchecked. Julian remained distant, watching from the sidelines, like a CEO monitoring a transaction. He never raised his voice, never lost control, but he was cold, methodical, impossible to read. Savannah hated how easily he could detach himself, how this whole thing felt like just another business deal. For days, they barely spoke outside of logistical briefings, until one afternoon, she found him in the garden, pruning a bonsai tree with precise hands. The sharp snap of tiny branches filled the silence. He didn't look up as she approached. You really do live in your own world, she said quietly. Julian paused. I value order. Order doesn't replace feeling, she replied, folding her arms. He finally turned to look at her. For the first time, there was something else behind those blue eyes. Not control, not calculation. Something softer. My mother used to tend these trees, he said. She said the discipline brought peace. Savannah sat on the edge of a nearby stone bench. Is that what you're looking for? Peace? Julian was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I'm not sure I know what peace feels like anymore. The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. She expected him to be heartless. Instead, she was starting to see the cracks in his armor, the man behind the contract, behind the money, and it scared her more than his coldness ever had, because if there was something real between them, even a spark, then everything just got more complicated. That evening, Julian surprised her by joining her for dinner. No staff, no agenda, just the two of them at a long oak table under the glow of a chandelier. He asked her about her favorite books, her childhood, how she liked her coffee, small things, human things, and Savannah found herself answering honestly, even laughing once or twice. She hated how natural it felt. She reminded herself this was temporary, but as Julian watched her across the table, something had shifted, and they both knew it. The days at the mansion blurred together, slow, quiet, surreal. Savannah was adjusting, at least on the outside. She kept her head down, followed the routine, went to every appointment without complaint. But inside, the guilt gnawed at her like a splinter buried too deep to remove. She still hadn't told Julian about Miles. Every time she opened her mouth to confess, her fear swallowed the words. The contract had been clear, no baggage, no TIs. What would he do if he found out she had a son? Revoke the deal? Take the baby? Throw her out? And then it happened, Late one morning, Savannah returned from a walk through the gardens to find Julian standing in the living room, a photo clutched in his hand. Her heart stopped. It was one of the only photos she'd brought with her. Miles, age 5, smiling with a popsicle in hand. She had hidden it in the drawer beneath her socks. Apparently not well enough. Julian didn't speak at first. He just stared at the photo, eyes unreadable, jaw tight. "Who is this?" he finally asked, his voice low but sharp. Savannah's throat tightened. She stepped forward slowly, like every inch mattered. "That's my son," she admitted, barely above a whisper. The silence that followed was suffocating. "You lied to me," he said, quieter this time, but with more weight. "I didn't lie," she said quickly. "I just didn't tell you. I was afraid you'd afraid I'd what?" He cut in. "That I'd cancel everything? That I'd see you as less worthy?" She didn't answer. "Because honestly, yes." Julian exhaled, turning away from her, still holding the photo. "You agreed to carry my child, Savannah. To walk away. You knew the rules." "I did this for my son," she snapped, emotion breaking through. "We were weeks from eviction. He was going to bed hungry. I didn't do this because I wanted money. I did it because I had no other choice." Her voice cracked at the end, tears burning behind her eyes. She waited for his judgment, for the cold shutdown she had feared since day one, but instead, Julian lowered the photo and sat down, elbows resting on his knees. He stared at the floor for a long moment. "You should have trusted me," he said softly. Savannah looked at him, stunned by the shift in his tone. There was no anger now, only something heavier. Disappointment, maybe even hurt. That night, he asked to meet in the library. The room was quiet, lit only by a lamp and the fireplace crackling behind him. A folder sat on the table in front of him. "I reviewed the contract," he said. "Technically, you didn't violate it, but I need to know you're being honest with me from here on out." She nodded, eyes glassy. "I'm not sending you away," he added. "But there's one condition: you can visit your son. See him. But he can't know the truth." "Not yet." Savannah's breath caught. "Why?" she whispered. Julian looked at her, his voice steadier now. "Because I know what it's like to grow up without answers." Savannah hadn't expected to cry, but the second Julian said she could see Miles, the tears came faster than she could hold them back. It was the first real mercy she'd been shown in months. The next day, a black SUV waited at the front gates. Sleek and silent, Linda packed her a small lunch and slipped a note of encouragement into her coat pocket. Julian stood by the front steps, dressed in his usual tailored suit, but something in his eyes had changed. Less cold, more human. "He'll be waiting for you," he said quietly. Savannah nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. The drive felt endless. Every bump in the road made her heart beat faster. When they pulled up to Mrs. Clay's small house, the place she once called home, Savannah stepped out before the car had even stopped. And then she saw him. "Mama." Miles came running across the lawn, arms outstretched, smile wide and innocent. Savannah dropped to her knees, scooping him into her arms, burying her face in his hair. "I missed you so much," she whispered, holding him like she'd never let go again. For the next few hours, everything else melted away. They played with toy cars, read his favorite picture book, and made peanut butter sandwiches just like they used to. But as the sun began to set, that familiar ache returned. She had to leave again. "When are you coming back?" Miles asked, his small hand gripping hers. "Soon," she promised, even though she didn't know what soon really meant. Back at the mansion, Julian was waiting in the sitting room. Savannah sank into the couch across from him, exhausted physically and emotionally. "How was he?" he asked. "He's perfect," she said, voice cracking. "And I don't want to keep lying to him." Julian nodded slowly. "I understand. But when the time is right, we'll tell him together." Savannah looked up, startled by the word "we." Days turned into weeks, and everything began to shift. Julian started inviting her to dinners, sharing more about his life, his lonely childhood, the pressure of the Cross family name, the walls he'd built to survive. Savannah, in turn, opened up about her fears, her dreams, and the broken pieces of herself she never thought anyone would understand. One night, he joined her on the balcony. The stars stretched wide above them. "I've spent my whole life building walls," he said, voice low. "But you made me want to tear them down." Savannah turned to him, heart racing. Then came the moment. "I've reviewed the contract again," Julian said the next morning, standing in his office with the paper in his hand. "And I've realized, it doesn't matter anymore." He tore it in half, then again, and let the pieces fall to the floor. You're not here because of an agreement, Savannah. You're here because I want you to be. And I want us to build something real together. Her breath caught, tears spilling again, but this time they weren't from pain, they were from hope. Now that you've followed Savannah and Julian through this emotional journey, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the choices they made? Do you believe Savannah did the right thing by signing the contract? And what about Julian? Did he redeem himself by the end? Tell us in the comments below. We'd especially love to know, would you have made the same decisions if you were in Savannah's shoes? Or do you think love and contracts should never mix? Your opinions matter, and we read every single comment. Also, let us know where you're watching from. We're always amazed by how many countries and cities our stories reach. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think twice about what love really means, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. We've got another powerful episode coming your way tomorrow, and trust us, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for being here. This community means everything to us.